Most people think the biggest fight in a divorce is about who cheated, who lied, or who moved on first. But let me tell you something from the real estate side. A lot of times, the biggest fight is the house. Not because of the bricks, not because of the kitchen, not because of the yard. It's because the house is memories, money, pride, control, fear, and sometimes revenge, all sitting under one roof. And in New York, here's where people mess up. They think my name is on the deed, so it's mine. Not always. That's where people get cooked. That's like handing somebody your car keys, but still keeping the car loan in your name. They drive off, miss payments, and now your credit is screaming in the backseat. So today, I'm breaking down what actually happens to the house in New York divorce from the real estate side. I'm not your attorney. I'm not your CPA. I'm not here to replace your legal team. But I am here to help you ask better questions, avoid emotional decisions, and understand why the house has to be treated like an asset, not just a battlefield. Because if you're going through a divorce and it's real estate involved, the wrong move can cost you equity, credit, time, peace, and your next chapter. What's going on? My name is Mike Marcus. I'm a real estate professional here in White Plains, New York, and I specialize in helping people navigate real estate decisions during major life transitions, including divorce. And today, we are talking about one of the most emotional and misunderstood questions. What happens to the house in New York divorce? Now, I want to say this clearly. This is educational. This is not legal advice. Divorce law is serious. Taxes are serious. Mortgage decisions are serious. So, you need a divorce attorney, and depending on your situation, you may need a CPA, mortgage professional, and a financial advisor. But from a real estate side, my job is to help you understand the moving pieces so you don't walk into the room blind. Because when emotions are high, people make decisions like, I just want out, or I don't care about what happens, or let them keep everything. That sounds strong in a moment, but 6 months later, when your credit is damaged, your name is still on the mortgage, or you gave up equity you didn't understand, that I don't care turns into how this happened. So let's slow it down. First thing you need to understand, New York is an equitable distribution state. That does not automatically mean everything gets split 50-50. Equitable means fair, and fair does not always mean equal. This is not kindergarten where the teacher cuts the cupcake exactly down the middle and says, everybody be happy. In divorce, the courts looks at the bigger picture. Who contributed what? When was the property purchased? Was it purchased during the marriage? Was it a separate property? Was marital money used to pay the mortgage? Did one spouse stay home and support the household while the other built income? Are the kids involved? Is one spouse trying to keep the home? There are layers. So when somebody says the house is in my name only, that might matter, but it does not automatically end the conversation. In New York, property acquired during the marriage can be considered marital property, even if only one spouse's name is on the deed. That one sentence right there can save somebody from making a very expensive assumption. Because I've seen people think title equals ownership of the entire outcome. No. Title matters, timing matters, source of funds matters, marriage matters, court orders matters, settlement agreements matter. This is why I tell people, let's make this simple. Marital property is usually property acquired during the marriage. Separate property is usually something one person owned before the marriage, inherited, or received as a gift specifically to them. But even separate property can get messy. Let's say one spouse owned the house before marriage. Then, during the marriage, both spouses use marital income to pay the mortgage, renovate the kitchen, finish the basement, or increase the value. Now, we have a different conversation. That's why divorce real estate is not just who bought it. When was it paid for? What money was used? Did the value increase during the marriage? Was the other spouse contributing in other ways that allowed the home to be maintained? And listen, people don't always like hearing that. Somebody watching this is probably like, Mike, I paid the mortgage. I hear you. But if you were married and your spouse was handling the kids, foods, cleaning, scheduling, supporting your career, or helping the household run, the court may look at the marriage as an economic partnership. You may not like it emotionally, but you need to understand it strategically because it's about what can be proven, negotiated, and legally structured. In most divorce situations involving a home, there are three common options. One, sell the home and divide the proceeds. Number two, one spouse keeps the house and buys out the other. Number three, delay the sale for a period of time. Let's break this down though. Option one is the cleanest in many cases. You sell a property, pay off the mortgage, pay selling costs, and whatever net proceeds are left get handled based on the divorce agreement or court order. This can be emotionally hard, but financially clean. Sometimes selling is not a failure. Sometimes selling is a reset button. People here sell a house and feel like they lost. But sometimes keeping the house is like trying to keep a boat with a hole in it just because you like the view. You still have to pay the mortgage, you still have to pay the taxes, you still got to pay the insurance, you still have to repair, you still have the utilities, you still have maintenance. The house does not care that you are emotionally exhausted. The furnace will still break, the roof will still leak, the tax bill will still show up. Like, hey, you remember me? So selling may be the smartest move if neither spouse can afford the home alone. Option two is the buyout. That means one spouse wants to keep the home and compensate the other spouse for their share of equity. Sounds simple, but this is where people get caught. A buyout is not just you keep the house and send me money. You need to know the value of the property. You need to know the mortgage payoff. You need to know the equity. You need to know whether the spouse keeping the home can refinance. You need to know whether the other spouse will be removed from the mortgage. You need to know whether there are liens, HELOCs, taxes, or repair issues. Because if your name stays on the mortgage, the bank does not care what your divorce agreement says emotionally. I'm telling you. The bank cares about the loan documents. That's it. So if your ex keeps the house, but your name is still on the mortgage, you may still be responsible for the payments. That can damage your credit. That can affect your ability to buy again. That can keep you tied to someone financially after the relationship is over. This is not freedom. This is a leash with the mailbox. Option number three is the delayed sale. Sometimes one spouse stays in the home temporarily. Maybe the kids needs to finish the school year. Maybe the market timing is bad. Maybe there's a court agreement that the house gets sold later. Maybe one spouse needs time to refinance. This can work, but it needs structure. Who pays the mortgage? Who pays taxes? Who pays insurance? Who handles repairs? What happens if someone misses a payment? When exactly does the house get listed? Who chooses the agent? What price do you list it at? What happens if the spouse refuses to sign? If those questions are not answered clearly, delayed sale can turn into a delayed war. This is probably the most important part of the whole video. The deed and the mortgage are not the same thing. The deed is ownership. The mortgage is debt. You can sign over ownership and still be responsible for the debt. Let me say that again. That means if you quit claim your name off the deed, but your name remains on the mortgage, you may no longer own the house, but you may still be tied to the loan. That is one of the worst positions to be in. That's like breaking up with somebody, moving out, giving them the furniture, and still paying for the couch they're sitting on with somebody else. Don't do that blindly, because before anyone signs anything, you need to understand the full plan. Is there refinance? Is there a sale? Is there a court order? Is there a timeline? Is there a release of a lender? This is why real estate legal and lender professionals need to communicate, not fight, communicate. Because sometimes one person is thinking emotionally, one person is thinking legally, one person is thinking financially, and the lender is just thinking, where's my money? If both spouses are on the mortgage, both are generally tied to the loan until it's paid off, refinanced, or otherwise resolved with the lender. A divorce decree does not automatically remove your name from a mortgage. That is critical. The divorce agreement might say one spouse is responsible for the mortgage, But if the lender still has both names on a loan, the lender can still look to the people who signed the loan documents. That means late payments may show up on your credit reports. That means your debt to income ratio may still be affected. That means when you try to buy your next home, the lender may say, we still see this mortgage. Now you're trying to start over, but the old house is still sitting on your financial chest like a weighted blanket you didn't ask for. So if the plan is for one spouse to keep the house, refinancing is often a major piece of the puzzle. But refinancing is not guaranteed. The spouse keeping the home has to qualify. Income matters. Credits matter. Debt matters. Interest rates matter. And in places like Westchester County, White Plains, Yonkers, New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, these are not tiny numbers. We are talking about serious property values, serious taxes, and serious monthly payments. So before anybody says, I'm keeping the house, the real question is this. Can you afford to keep the house without drowning? Because keeping the house just to prove a point can become financial punishment. Now, let's talk about value. You cannot make a smart decision without knowing what the property is worth. And I don't mean what Zillow says while you're angry at midnight. I mean a real market-based opinion. You may need an appraisal. You may need a comparative market analysis. You may need the court or the attorneys involved, but the value matters because everything flows from that. Let's say the home is worth $700,000. The mortgage payoff is $400,000. That looks like $300,000 in equity. Before selling costs, taxes, liens, repairs, credits, or any other adjustments. But if the house needs work, if there's a HELOC, if there are judgments, if there are market shifts, that number changes. This is why people get into fights. One spouse says the house is worth $800,000. The other spouse, no, it's worth $650,000. And sometimes both are wrong. Because value is not what you want. Value is what the market will support. The market does not care about your memories. The buyer does not care that you raised your kids there. The appraiser does not care that the Thanksgiving was beautiful in 2017. The market is looking at conditions, locations, comparable sales, inventory, interest rates, buyer demand, and what someone is willing to pay or able to pay right now. That's where the real estate professional with divorce experience can help keep you grounded. Not emotional, grounded. One of your next questions may be, what if one spouse refuses to sell? This happens. One person wants to sell, the other refuses. One person blocks showings, one person won't sign paperwork, one person wants to be unrealistic with the price, one person says, I'm not helping you. Now, we are no longer just dealing with real estate. We are dealing with control. In a divorce, if the parties cannot agree, the court may have to get involved. There can be orders about sale, price reductions, access, listing agents, and what happens if someone refuses to cooperate. This is why you do not want vague language in your agreement. Vague language creates loopholes, and loopholes creates drama. If the agreement says the house will be sold, that's not enough detail. Who will list it? What price? What happens after 30 days with no offers? What if repairs are needed? Who pays utilities? What happens if one person delays? Specific beats, emotional every time. Now, let's talk about taxes. This is where people need a CPA. When you sell a primary residence, there may be capital gains exclusion available if you qualify. Generally, it can be $250,000 for a single filer, $500 for a married couple filing joint, but divorce can complicate timing. Are you still married for tax purposes? Are you filing jointly? One spouse move out? How much gain is there? What is the basis? Were there improvements? In Westchester and New York areas where people may have owned homes for years, this matters. If you bought a house years ago and it appreciated a lot, taxes can become a real issue. So do not wait until the closing table to ask about tax questions. That is like asking if you need gas after the car already stopped on the highway. Bring the CPA in the conversation early. Buying a new home during divorce. Now, what if you want to buy a new home? If you are still tied to the marital home mortgage, that may affect your ability to qualify. If support payments are involved, that may affect your debt to income ratio. If assets are not divided yet, that may affect your funds to close. This is why your real estate plan and your divorce plan needs to work together. You don't want your attorney moving one way, your lender moving another way, and your agent guessing in the corner. Everybody needs to understand the goal. Are we selling first? Are we refinancing? Are we buying after settlement? Are we waiting for the divorce to finalize? Are we using proceeds from the sale? The order matters. What a divorce real estate specialist actually does. I'm not here to take sides. That's important. In a divorce situation, the wrong agent can make things worse by becoming emotional, picking favorites, or not understanding the sensitivity. A divorced real estate professional lets things be clear. That may include helping determine real estate market value, explaining sale options, coordinating with attorneys when appropriate, helping create a listing plan, managing access and communication professionally, explaining repairs, prices, showings, offers, and timelines, helping both sides understand what the market is actually saying. The goal is not drama, the goal is resolution. Because when you're selling a home during a divorce, you don't just need marketing, you need patience, you need documentation, you need someone neutral. This is not just another listing. This is somebody's life changing. Mistake number one, assuming the house is yours because only your name is on it. In New York, that may not be the full story. Mistake number two, moving out without understanding your rights and responsibilities. Moving out does not automatically mean you lose everything, but it can create practical and legal issues. Talk to your attorney first. Mistake number three, signing over the deed without handling the mortgage. This one hurts really bad. Mistake number four, keeping a house you cannot afford. Pride is expensive. Do you understand me? It's expensive. Mistake number five, refusing to sell just to punish the other person. That may feel powerful, but it can destroy equity and drag out the process. Mistake number six, not getting tax advice. A house sale can create tax consequences. Do not freestyle that. Mistake number seven, hiring the wrong agent. Divorce real estate requires more than a lockbox and a yard sign. So what happens to the house in New York real estate? It depends on when the home was purchased. It depends on how it was paid for. It depends on whose name is on the deed. It depends on whose name is on the mortgage. It depends on the equity. It depends on whether one spouse can refinance. It depends on the divorce agreement or court order. It depends on taxes. It depends on what both sides are willing and able to do. But here's the main thing I want you to take from this. If you didn't take anything else, do not make emotional real estate decisions during divorce without understanding the financial consequences. Please. The house may feel personal, but it has to be handled professionally because the goal is not just to get through the divorce. The goal is to come out with your credit, your equity, your peace, and your next chapter protected. If you are in New York and you're going through a divorce with real estate, speak with your attorney, speak with the CPA, and make sure your real estate professional understands this process. Because the wrong move with the house can follow you long after that relationship is over. And nobody wants to be divorced emotionally, but still married financially to a mortgage. That's a bad relationship with paperwork. I'm Mike Marcus, and I help people make smarter real estate decisions during major life transitions. If this helped you, send it to somebody who needs help. Like, comment, subscribe if you want more information about the divorce process. And look, whatever you guys do, make sure nobody ruin your day. I'm gonna leave you on that note.